My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today I'm going to show you 20 famous bands that AC/DC opened for in the early days. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Well, let's start. The first one is simply Lou Reed, the former Velvet Underground guitarist and vocalist. AC/DC opened for them in 1974, 1 year after AC/DC was formed in Sydney, Australia. Lou Reed was touring in Australia, and he had as the support act an Australian singer named Stevie Wright and AC/DC. And a curious thing, AC/DC was his opening act during 8 dates, and during the stop in Adelaide, they had the chance to meet their future vocalist Bon Scott. So, you know, that was a historical tour. If they were not Lou Reed's opening act, maybe they would have never had Bon Scott as a vocalist. Who knows? We move to the next one, which is Susie Quatro. It was in 1976 that AC/DC was her opening act. And this happened as in a mini festival in Germany, in the city of Duisburg. It was called Bravo Disco Concert. I don't think that fitted AC/DC that much. And besides them, there were two opening acts, or other opening acts, which were Slick and Sean Cassidy. And at the time, AC/DC already had their first classic lineup with Malcolm Young, Angus Young, Bon Scott, Mark Evans on bass, and Phil Rudd on drums. Also in 1976, they had the chance to be the opening act for Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, which had that first classic formation with Ronnie James Dio on vocals. And they really impressed Ronnie James Dio and the drummer Cozy Powell at the time. There's a really interesting interview that Ronnie James Dio gave that we transcribed a while ago. I'm gonna read you a small part about him talking about that tour. AC/DC opened for Rainbow in Europe, and this is what he said. Bon Scott was one of the badass people I ever known in my life. He was not only badass, he was a great guy. He toured with us when I was in Rainbow. They were our opening act, AC/DC. Cozy and I were knocked out every night. That's what Ronnie James Dio said about Bon Scott and AC/DC. How cool is that? On the other hand, Ritchie Blackmore said a few times in interviews over the decades he was not a big AC/DC fan. We move to the next ones, which are Black Oak, Arkansas, Ted Nugent, and Brand X. This happened at the Reading Rock Festival in 1976. Black Oak, Arkansas was a really great band, American band, which had as the vocalist Gene Dandy. And for a while it also had the ex-Ozzy Osbourne drummer, who is the drummer for Whitesnake nowadays. So it has a history, and you know, it was a really big band at the time. Nowadays it doesn't seem like a big band, although they were important. And so there was a big lineup during that day, but AC/DC played before famous groups like those ones. And besides Black Oak, Arkansas, you had Ted Nugent and Brand X. Brand X was the group which had Phil Collins. He used to play with Brand X and record when he had a break from Genesis at the time. And an interesting thing is about Ted Nugent, that this was not the only time that AC/DC opened for him. In 1979, they would open again for Ted Nugent in New York City at the Madison Square Garden. And that was the first time that AC/DC played at the Madison Square Garden. We moved to 1977, and we're talking about Kiss. I mean, we already made a video about this because the incredible amount of famous groups who opened for Kiss in the 70s is just huge, and AC/DC is one of them. Gene Simmons had the chance to watch them in a small club in the United States around that time, and he was obviously really impressed by them, and he managed everything to he arranged everything to have them on tour, and it really helped them a lot to achieve a new audience. And another interesting thing is that in an interview with Sirius XM a few years ago, he was asked which was Kiss best opening act, and his choice was AC/DC. He said it was the best set list, the best band he saw playing before Kiss. We move to another one, which is from 1977 as well, and it is Black Sabbath. Around 1977, Black Sabbath was one of the biggest bands of in the world, and it still had the original formation with Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Ozzy Osbourne, and they were promoting the 1976 album Technical Ecstasy, but things didn't end up so well because there was a fight between Malcolm Young and Geezer Butler. And, Mark Evans, the former AC/DC bassist, says that Geezer Butler pulled a knife at Malcolm Young. And there was a fight that this was happening, but Mark Evans actually said that Malcolm Young knocked Geezer Butler down. And Geezer denies that. Geezer said that Malcolm was saying some bad things, slagging Black Sabbath off. As he said in an interview with Classic Rock magazine in 2016, Geezer said that he never pulled a knife to threaten Malcolm Young, as a lot of people said. He said, "No, I didn't pull a knife. I always had flick knives when I was growing up because everybody used to go around stabbing each other in Aston. Flick knives were banned in England, but when we were playing in Switzerland, I bought one. I was just flicking it when Malcolm Young came up to me and started slagging Sabbath." He said that it was all that happened, nobody got hurt, but he didn't really explain why AC/DC was kicked out of that tour, because Black Sabbath kicked AC/DC out around that time. Also in 1977 and then in 1978, AC/DC opened for Aerosmith. And they opened it in 77 in Europe, and then in 1978 they opened Aerosmith's concerts in the United States. And the interesting thing is that they got along really well, and both bands, and especially Steven Tyler, who Angus and Malcolm said many times that helped them a lot. And the curious thing is that decades later, when AC/DC was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003, they chose Steven Tyler to be the one who to induct them. And that's the reason why they said they helped him, because Steven helped AC/DC a lot. That's why they chose him to be the one to induct them. Also in 1977 and 1978, AC/DC opened it for Foreigner. They opened it for Foreigner in 1977, but in 1978, they were part of a festival called Summer Jam, which has as the cold headliners Aerosmith and Foreigner. And AC/DC was also on the bill with Walter Egan, Frank Marino, and Mahogany Rush. And Foreigner in 1978, during this small festival, wanted to drop out AC/DC. They didn't want them on the bill. But Steven Tyler told Foreigner that if they dropped AC/DC, Aerosmith would be out as well. So that's what was one of the times that Steven Tyler saved AC/DC, and this is one of the reasons why they were so grateful to Steven, because he helped AC/DC a lot during the start of their career. In 1978, they also opened it for Alice Cooper, and it was when this was already when AC/DC was promoting Power Age, their incredible 1978 album. And at the time, obviously, Alice was already quite known, and he was already a solo act. He was no longer the original Alice Cooper band. And we moved to another one that they opened it in 1978, which is Blue Oyster Cult. And the interesting thing is that AC/DC, it was also around when they were promoting Power Age, and AC/DC was not really happy at the time, as the Blue Oyster Cult vocalist and guitarist Eric Bloom said once that they didn't get all the lights and all the things in stage they wanted, so they were not really happy about it. He told Classic Rock in 2020 saying they were very pissed off at the time that they didn't get all the lights and sound, so they were not quite really happy about it. In 1978, they also opened it for Thin Lizzy, the Irish group led by the time by Phil Lynott, the bassist and singer. And around that time, the lineup had already changed. It was AC/DC's second classic lineup. It was the same one that I mentioned it a while ago, but the difference was that Mark Evans was fired, and they replaced him on bass with Cliff Williams, who would be a member of the band until recently, when he really retired for good. In 1979, and this was, and they were releasing Highway to Hell, and they were still an opening act. It's hard to imagine that, but they opened it for Journey, and that was a strange bill, because although Journey is a classic rock band, I think they're much softer than AC/DC. And the interesting thing is that the original, the former Journey vocalist Steve Perry is a big fan of AC/DC, and he's a big fan of Bon Scott. And there's a really interesting statement on Bon Scott's website that is from Steve Perry. He said this about the experience of seeing Bon Scott live. He said, "I walked over to stage left to see what the heck was happening. There he was, Bon Scott, with a bottle of Jack, no shirt, Levi's, and cowboy boots. He was singing like a cross between Steve Marriott and a cat. His voice was so fucking powerful that he changed me forever. He lived what he was." That's what Steve Perry said about seeing AC/DC with Bon Scott live. Also in 1979, the band was the opening act for UFO, the incredible British hard rock band. However, at the time, they didn't have the classic guitarist Michael Schenker as a member. The band was formed by Phil Mogg, the vocalist, Paul Chapman, guitar, Pete Wade bass, Paul Raymond keyboards, and Andy Parker on drums. Around that time, they were selling millions of records because it was 1 year before they released the groundbreaking live album Strangers in the Night. In 1979, AC/DC also opened it for Cheap Trick. That's right. They played a lot with Steve Trick during the 70s. And the interesting thing is that they got along so well that during Cheap Trick's encore, they would invite AC/DC over the stage, and they would play it often. Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good, and there is that version on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's incredible, man. It's so cool. Cheap Trick and AC/DC. What a collab, just amazing. In 1979, they were part of a festival called Nuremberg Open Air, which had The Who as the headliner, as you can see here. And the support acts were Cheap Trick and AC/DC again, So, and if you look a little bit below on the bill, you're gonna see Scorpions. Around that time, they were not as big as they are today, but they were also on that bill. So Scorpions opened it for AC/DC technically as well. This show happened a year after AC/DC lost their original drummer Keith Moon. In 79, they also opened it on a festival called Mississippi River Jam 2, which happened in the United States at the John O'Donnell Stadium in Davenport, Iowa. And they opened it for Heart, incredible hard rock pop rock group, classic rock group, led by the Wilson sisters, and Nazareth, who is another incredible band that had Dan McFarty as the vocalist. And also on that bill were UFO, also played before, actually after AC/DC, so they opened it for UFO that day as well. And the final one was selected, which is quite interesting. It's hard to imagine that this really happened. And it happened about 2 decades ago, in 2023, when AC/DC opened it for Rolling Stones. I mean, since Back in Black, AC/DC, could never again be the opening act for nobody. They were the absolute headliners for the rest of their career. But they accepted Rolling Stones' offer to be their opening act during 4 shows, and the first one happened in Germany. And they also got on the stage after their show to play a few songs with the Rolling Stones, and one of them was Rock Me Baby, and you can see that on YouTube as well. And an interesting thing is that Keith Richards, he really has a taste for older bands from the 50s, 60s. He was really influenced by those groups, and it's really rare to see him praise a group that appeared after the Rolling Stones or after the 70s or heavier groups. But he's a big fan of AC/DC. He praised them many times, and he also said that Power Age, released in 1978, is his favorite AC/DC album. And that's it. I hope you like the list. It's quite interesting. A lot of interesting facts here. If you want to read more, you can go to the description and read the article we wrote about all of this. Don't forget to visit rockandrollgarage.com. Don't forget to like the video, leave your comment, tell me if you had the chance to see any of these shows, and let's talk about it. All right? Share with your friends, and we're going to talk about this. Thank you for watching, and I see you later.